My sister-in-law said I was trying to steal my own brother. Then my whole family turned against me. Welcome to Next Chapter Life Stories. Stories of love, loss, and second chances. Please subscribe and share. It truly helps us bring more stories to life. Now let's begin. This is your next chapter. You know how people say family is forever? I used to believe that too. Until I learned that sometimes, the people who share your blood can make you bleed the worst. My name's Maddie Carter, I'm 27, and I grew up in a small town in Oregon, in one of those neighborhoods where everyone waves at you even if they don't know your name. It was me, my parents, and my older brother Ethan, 3 years older, my best friend, my protector, my partner in crime. If you saw one of us, the other wasn't far behind. Ethan was that kind of guy everyone liked. Funny, patient, could fix anything from a car engine to a broken heart. And well, I was the little sister who always followed him around, asking a million questions and stealing fries from his plate. We were close. Like really close. People even joked that we acted like twins. He always called me kiddo, even after I graduated college. When Ethan met Lena, his future wife, I was genuinely happy for him. She seemed nice, smart, funny, and really into him. They met at some 4th of July barbecue his company hosted. And honestly, I remember thinking, finally, someone who can keep up with Ethan's sarcasm. For the first year or so, everything was fine. We'd hang out, do Sunday dinners at my parents' house, celebrate birthdays together. Lena would bring her famous mac and cheese casserole, Ethan would grill burgers, and I'd make desserts, usually brownies or cupcakes with way too much frosting. But then, little things started changing. Lena got quieter around me. She used to text me memes or send girls' night ideas. Then suddenly, nothing. At first I thought she was just busy with work or wedding planning stress. But after the wedding, it only got worse. One night during Thanksgiving dinner, I caught Lena watching me with this strange look, like she was trying to figure something out. And when Ethan laughed at one of my jokes, the kind of stupid inside joke we'd had since we were kids, she rolled her eyes. That was the first time I felt something shift. Something small but heavy, like a crack forming in the foundation. A week later, Ethan called me. He sounded off, quiet, hesitant. And then he said, "Hey, Mads. Maybe cool it with the random visits for a while. Lena feels like we're a little too close." I remember just sitting there, stunned. Too close. Ethan, what does that even mean? You're my brother. He sighed. I know how it sounds. Just she thinks you're kind of always around. And she wants more space. More space. That phrase hit me like a slap. I lived 15 minutes away. I saw them maybe once a week. How much space did she want? Another state. But I didn't argue. I just said, okay, if that's what she wants. I hung up, trying to convince myself it was just a phase. New marriage, new boundaries. No big deal. Right. Except, after that call, nothing was ever the same again. After that phone call, things got weird fast. The kind of weird where you can't even put your finger on what's wrong, but you feel it. Like walking into a room that used to be warm, and suddenly realizing the air's turned cold. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Ethan loved me. He just needed time to adjust to married life. I'd seen it happen with other siblings. New wife, new priorities. Totally normal. So I backed off. I didn't text him every day like I used to. I stopped dropping by on Sunday mornings with coffee and donuts. I even skipped a couple of family dinners, hoping that maybe the distance would help. But distance didn't help. It just gave Lena more room to rewrite the story. A few weeks later, Mom invited me over for dinner. It was just supposed to be her dad and me. Ethan and Lena couldn't make it because of work stuff. Halfway through dinner, Mom sighed and said, "Honey, maybe you are being a little too present in Ethan's life. Married couples need privacy." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Wait, what? Where is this coming from? She avoided my eyes. "It's not just me, sweetheart." Lena mentioned feeling uncomfortable. Said sometimes you cross boundaries without realizing it. Boundaries. I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Mom, I literally barely see them. How's that crossing boundaries? She shrugged helplessly. I'm just saying. Maybe give it some time. That was the moment I realized Lena had gone to my parents. It wasn't enough to push me away from Ethan. She wanted the whole family to see me as the problem. And somehow she was pulling it off. December rolled around. Christmas season in Oregon. Usually my favorite time of year. Snow dusting the rooftops, cinnamon candles everywhere. The smell of pine and coffee shops filled with carols. We'd always done Christmas Eve at my parents' house. Ethan in charge of the tree, me on dessert duty. But that year, no invitation came. When I finally called Mom, she hesitated before saying, "Oh, sweetheart, Lena's hosting Christmas this year." She thought it might be nice to start a new family tradition. A new tradition. Without me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask, since when does family tradition mean excluding actual family? But instead I just said, "Sure, Mom. Sounds great," and hung up. Christmas Eve I sat in my apartment alone, watching Home Alone and pretending it didn't hurt. But it did. God, it hurt. In January I tried to reach out to Ethan again. I texted him, "Hey, want to grab lunch sometime? I miss you." He didn't reply. Not for a day. Not for a week. 2 weeks later, I finally got a one-line response. "Been busy. Maybe next month." I remember staring at the message until the screen dimmed. The guy who used to call me every other day to rant about football or ask my opinion on what to get Lena for her birthday, now couldn't spare 5 minutes for lunch. That's when I started wondering if Lena had given him an ultimatum. Then came Dad's birthday in February. Mom said we'd all meet at the Rusty Fork, his favorite diner. I got there early, brought Dad his favorite German chocolate cake and waited. Ethan and Lena walked in 20 minutes late. The moment she saw me, her smile tightened. Like she'd bitten into a lemon. I stood up and hugged Ethan and he stiffened, like even touching me was awkward now. We all sat down and the whole dinner felt wrong. The jokes, the small talk, even the silences had weight. Lena kept correcting me when I told stories, twisting little details, like she was subtly rewriting our shared history in front of my parents. At one point she laughed and said, "You and Ethan were so inseparable back then. I remember thinking you acted more like a couple than siblings." The table went dead quiet. Ethan cleared his throat and muttered, "Lena, come on, don't start." I felt my face burn. I wanted to disappear. Mom tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. Every eye in that diner turned toward me, measuring, judging. That night, I cried in my car for half an hour before driving home. After that, things spiraled. Mom and Dad started inviting Ethan and Lena over without telling me. I'd find out only when I saw photos on Facebook. Mom's caption, "Family dinner night. Family. Without me." Every time I asked about it, Mom said, "Oh honey, it just happened last minute." Last minute. But I started wondering what I'd done to deserve this. Had I been too clingy? Too opinionated? Too present? Or was Lena just jealous that Ethan and I had something she couldn't control? By spring, I barely heard from my brother. He skipped my birthday. Didn't even send a text. I told myself maybe he forgot, but deep down I knew. Lena didn't forget. She just didn't let him remember. Around that time, I ran into one of Ethan's co-workers at a grocery store. She smiled and said, "Hey, I saw your brother's baby shower photos. So exciting, huh?" I blinked. "Baby shower." She frowned. "Oh, you didn't know?" "No, I didn't. I didn't even know Lena was pregnant." When I got home, I sat on the couch staring at the wall, numb. They were having a baby. And no one thought to tell me. Not my parents. Not Ethan. Not even a friend of the family. Just a random coworker in the cereal aisle. I think that was the moment something inside me cracked. Not shattered, not exploded. Just cracked quietly like ice underfoot. Because it hit me. I wasn't just being pushed away. I was being erased. When the baby, Olivia Grace, was born, Mom sent me a photo over text. No message, no "come visit." Just a single picture. Ethan holding his newborn daughter, smiling like the sun. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. A week later I decided to try one last time. I bought a tiny pink blanket and a stuffed bunny and drove to Ethan's house. Lena answered the door, wearing yoga pants and that perfect fake smile. "Hey," I said, forcing a smile. "I just wanted to drop off a gift for the baby." She looked me up and down. "That's sweet, Maddie, but it's not a good time. Olivia's sleeping." "Oh, that's okay, I can just leave it." She cut me off. "Actually, Ethan's working. It's better if you call next time." Her tone wasn't rude. It was worse. Calm, polite, like she was speaking to a stranger. I handed her the gift and said quietly, "Tell Ethan I love him." She smiled. "I will." She didn't. 2 months later, Mother's Day brunch. I showed up at Mom's favorite cafe, carrying flowers. When I walked in, I froze. Ethan, Lena, the baby, all sitting there at a corner table. Mom's smile faltered when she saw me. "Oh, honey. I thought I told you we changed plans." Well, she hadn't. And I could tell by the look on Lena's face. She knew I'd show up. Lena leaned over and said lightly, "It's okay, we can squeeze her in," like she was doing me a favor. That was it. I sat down, heart pounding, and decided if they wanted to make me invisible, I'd make them see me. So I smiled, complimented the baby, tried to start conversations, but Lena kept interrupting, redirecting every topic back to herself. Every time Ethan looked at me, she'd touch his arm or whisper something, and he'd look away. When the check came, I grabbed it first. "It's on me," I said. "For Mom." Lena immediately reached for it. No, it's okay, we've got it." "Hold on. Please. Let me do something for my family." The word family hung in the air like smoke. She stared at me for a long second, then let go. "Fine," she said softly. "If it makes you feel included." And that's when I knew she wasn't just jealous. She was winning. Few days later, Mom called. Her voice was shaky. "Honey, maybe you shouldn't come around for a while. Lena thinks you're making things tense for everyone." "Tense?" I laughed, though it came out more like a sob. "I'm just trying to exist, Mom." "She's very sensitive right now," Mom said. "New baby, hormones." "Mom, this isn't hormones," I snapped. "She's turning you all against me." Sighed. "Maddie, please don't make this harder." Click. That click felt like a door slamming shut in my heart. Weeks passed. Summer arrived, bright skies, barbecues, neighborhood block parties. Everywhere I looked, families laughed together. I felt like a ghost. I tried dating, tried new hobbies, tried pretending I didn't care. But every time I passed a family with a baby, my chest ached. Then one evening, Dad called. His voice was quiet. "Sweetheart, can you come over tomorrow? We need to talk." When I got there, both my parents looked exhausted, like they'd aged 10 years. Dad said gently, "Lena doesn't want you around Olivia right now. She says she's uncomfortable with the way you act toward Ethan." I stared at him. "The way I act? What does that even mean?" Mom murmured. "She said you're possessive." I laughed out loud. "Possessive? He's my brother." Dad sighed. "We know that. But she feels." "No," I interrupted. "She feels like she can control all of you, and you're letting her." Silence. Then Dad said, "Maybe it's best if you take some space. Just for a while." Space. There it was again. That word. The one that started it all. I stood up, tears blurring my vision. "Okay," I whispered. "You want space. You've got it." I walked out, leaving the cake I'd brought for them sitting untouched on the table. That night I deleted the family group chat. Then I sat on the floor of my apartment and sobbed until the sun came up. Because for the first time in my life, I realized something that broke me completely. My family didn't lose me. They chose to let me go. It's strange how silence can get so loud. After that night, after I walked out of my parents' house, I thought maybe someone would call. Ethan. Anyone. But the phone stayed silent. For days. Then weeks. Then months. First I tried to stay strong. I told myself I didn't need them. I buried myself in work, took double shifts, Started volunteering at a local animal shelter just to keep busy. I even deleted my social media so I wouldn't have to see their smiling faces at family events I wasn't invited to. But loneliness, it creeps in quietly. You can ignore it during the day, when the world's loud and your hands are busy. But at night, when it's just you and the dark, your thoughts get mean. They whisper things like, maybe Lena was right. Maybe you were too attached. Maybe you're the problem. And you start to believe them. That summer, Oregon was hotter than usual. I remember lying on my couch, fan buzzing, watching sunlight crawl across the floor, when I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, Maddie. Jake. Can we talk? Jake, my cousin. He just moved back from Seattle. We hadn't talked in ages, but he'd always been the cool cousin who took me for drives when I was a teenager and made fun of Ethan's serious face. I texted back, sure. He showed up 20 minutes later with iced coffees and that easy grin he'd always had. We sat on my porch while cicadas screamed in the trees. I ran into your mom at the grocery store, he said carefully. She mentioned you haven't been around. I laughed dryly. That's one way to put it. He looked at me. Maddie, what happened? So I told him. Everything. From Lena's side eyes at Thanksgiving to the baby shower I wasn't invited to being told I was too close to my own brother. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finally ran out of words, he sat back and said quietly, "You know this isn't about you, right?" I frowned. What do you mean? Lena sounds insecure as hell. You didn't do anything wrong. You just existed in a space she couldn't control. I blinked, and suddenly tears were sliding down my face. Because hearing it out loud made it real. He handed me a napkin and said, "Family doesn't cut you out for loving too much, Maddie. That's on them, not you." That night after he left, I sat outside until the stars came out. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was suffocating. A few weeks later I started therapy. It wasn't easy. I grew up in a we don't talk about feelings kind of family, but I knew I needed it. My therapist, Dr. Kim, asked me in our first session, "What do you want to get out of this?" I said, "I want to stop apologizing for being me." Because that's what I'd been doing my whole life. Shrinking myself to make other people comfortable. Laughing things off when they hurt. Pretending I was okay with being left out because I didn't want to make things awkward. Dr. Kim smiled softly and said, "Then that's where we'll start." Over the next few months, I learned things about myself I'd never realized. Like how I'd built my entire identity around being the good sister, the peacekeeper, the one who fixed everything. And when that role was ripped away, I didn't know who I was anymore. I started journaling every night. Small things I was grateful for, moments that made me laugh, even if they were stupid. I reconnected with old friends from college, went hiking again, tried yoga, hated it, and joined a local book club. Slowly, I started building a life that didn't orbit around Ethan or my parents. A life that was mine. Then, one crisp October morning, I was walking out of a coffee shop when I saw someone across the street, pushing a stroller. Lena. She looked almost exactly the same. Perfect hair, perfect outfit, that same air of control. Olivia toddled beside her now. Tiny sneakers, curly hair, big curious eyes. For a second I froze. I wanted to run. But then Olivia looked up at me, smiled, and said in the sweetest voice, "Hi." I felt something inside me melt. Lena turned, saw me, and her smile faltered. "Oh, Maddie." "Hey," I said softly. "She's beautiful." Lena nodded stiffly. "Thanks." There was an awkward silence. Cars whooshed by, and somewhere a dog barked. Finally I said, "You don't have to worry. I'm not here to make things weird. I just hope she knows she's loved." Lena's face flickered. Something human breaking through the polished mask. "I know you care about Ethan," she said quietly. "But things are better this way." "Better for who?" Yes. She didn't answer. Just said, "Take care, Maddie," and walked away. I stood there watching her go, the fall wind biting my face. And for the first time I didn't feel angry. Just done. Thanksgiving came around again. Mom sent me a thinking of you text that morning. No invite. Just those 3 words. Jake called me later that day. You alone? Yeah, I said, smiling into the phone. But it's okay. I made lasagna. I'm fine. He laughed. You and your lasagna. After we hung up, I put on some music, poured myself a glass of wine, and ate dinner by candlelight. It wasn't sad. It was peaceful. And somewhere between the second glass of wine and dessert, I realized I didn't miss them anymore. I missed who they used to be. And that person didn't exist anymore. Then, out of nowhere, Christmas Eve, I got a call. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello, Maddie. That voice. I hadn't heard it in over a year. Ethan, I whispered. He exhaled shakily. Yeah, hey. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear noise in the background. Laughter, clinking dishes, maybe the baby. Then he said, I don't even know where to start. How about hi? I said softly. He laughed, nervously. Hi. There was a pause. I miss you. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For a second I couldn't breathe. I miss you too, I said finally. Every day. He sighed. Things got complicated. Lena, she said some things. I shouldn't have listened. Why did you? I asked quietly. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, because it was easier than standing up to her. That broke my heart all over again. Not out of anger, but because I knew exactly what he meant. We talked for almost an hour. About the baby, about work, about nothing and everything. He told me Olivia was obsessed with drawing on walls and that he was exhausted but happy. Before hanging up, he said, I don't know if we can fix everything, but I'd like to try. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt hope. A week later, he came over. Just him. No Lena. He looked older, tired, thinner, eyes full of guilt. But when he smiled, I saw my brother again. We talked for hours. He apologized, really apologized, for not defending me, for not seeing how much I was hurting. He told me Lena had been in therapy too. That things at home were tense. I'm not asking you to forgive her, he said. I just don't want to lose you again. He nodded. You already lost me, Ethan. But maybe you can find me again. He smiled through tears. Deal. Over the next few months we started rebuilding. Slowly, carefully. He'd bring Olivia over sometimes when Lena was visiting her mom. We'd play with bubbles on my porch, eat ice cream, and laugh until our faces hurt. She started calling me Auntie Mads. The first time she said it, I cried. One day, she found an old photo of me and Ethan as kids, covered in mud, grinning like idiots, and said, That's Daddy. And that's you. Yeah, I said, smiling through tears. That's me. Then one afternoon Lena showed up. Ethan had forgotten something at my place. His jacket, I think, and she came to pick it up. I opened the door, heart pounding. Hey, I said. She looked uncertain, holding Olivia's hand. Hi. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then Olivia ran past her, straight into my arms. Auntie Mads. Lena froze. I waited for her to pull the child away, but she didn't. She just stood there watching. After a few seconds she said quietly, Ethan told me you've been seeing Olivia. Sometimes, I said. When he asks. She nodded. I used to think you were trying to take him away from me. I never was, I said gently. He's my brother. That's all I ever wanted, to be part of his life. Of her life. Lena's eyes glistened. I know that now. We stood there in silence. Years of tension hanging between us like ghosts. Finally she said, I'm sorry. It wasn't much. But it was enough. A few months later, we all ended up together at my parents' house for Sunday dinner. The first time in years. Mom cried the moment she saw us all in one room. Dad grilled steaks like nothing had happened. Olivia ran around the yard chasing bubbles while Ethan laughed. Lena and I sat on the porch. It wasn't perfect. Still awkward, still fragile, but it was peaceful. She turned to me and said, You know, I used to think you were my biggest threat. Turns out, You were the glue this family needed. Smiled. That's funny. I used to think I was the problem. She laughed softly. Guess we were both wrong. Later that night, after everyone left, I stayed behind to help Mom with dishes. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you." I smiled through tears. "It's okay, Mom. We all messed up. And maybe that's what family really is. Not the people who never hurt you, but the ones who try to make it right after they do." It's been 2 years since then. Ethan and I are closer than ever. Lena and I, well, we're not best friends, but we respect each other. And Olivia, she's 5 now, with the same mischievous grin her dad had at that age. She calls me every week to tell me her big news. Usually about a drawing or losing a tooth, or how she can almost ride her bike without training wheels. Sometimes I still think about those lonely months, about how it felt to be erased. But now I see them differently. They weren't punishment. They were rebirth. Because in losing my family I found myself. And when I finally stopped begging to be seen, that's when they started seeing me. Sometimes love doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under fear, pride, and silence. But when you finally learn to stand on your own, the people meant to stay in your life always find their way back. Thank you for listening to my story till the end. Sometimes family can hurt us more than anyone else, but I'm learning that setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving them. What about you? Would you have forgiven them or walked away for good? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you've been through something similar, I'd love to read your story.